Alrighty. So this project, I think I've been watching too many Avenger movies. Let's call this the Thanos snap of peonies, or do you say peonies? I don't know. My wife says I can go either way. She's the English expert. Um, I've never messed with silicone drying beads before, and this was a revelation. If you've watched some of my previous projects about apples and flowers and things, I've tried air drying them, and I've also put them in a freeze dryer, which I thought was the bee's knees. But both processes, you lose a lot of color and you lose a lot of integrity, how the flower looks. And this blew me away. I got distracted with a couple of other projects. It didn't need to stay in the silicone gel for 2 weeks, but it did. And the color was almost unchanged. I was really happy about that, as well as the appearance of everything. Um, the mistake I made was I probably should have hung these upside down in a bowl and filled them up because they totally got squished. It didn't seem like they were getting squished when I put the beads in there because they're so lightweight, but they got squished. Anyway, so next time around, I can hang them upside down and have an even better result. But that was first time around, but I was shocked. I completely underestimated the power of silicone beads in drying out something. I thought that was a bit of a, I don't know, a hoax, oversell. You tell me, but it was beautiful. Totally better than anything else, any other process I've seen. Excited to try that. I'm curious what I could do, what I could dry in there. I'm thinking the sky's the limit. So I know I've heard of some guys drying out wood, like whole bowl blanks and things. So maybe I'll have to get more of it and try that out. This was another chunk of my beloved willow tree. Just so happened that this tree that died in my yard had a whole bunch of branches that were just the perfect diameter for the kind of projects I like, and it's got decent grain. Um, and it's not super hard, which makes it easier to turn. So it's been my go-to until I run out of that. I've had some really awesome donations lately of really beautiful wood grain, black walnut, and different things, but unfortunately, a lot of it is green. So I'm waiting for it to dry out. Hence the temptation to buy a few gallons of these silicone beads and see if I can dry out the wood that I want to use next. So the goal here was to create an illusion of the peonies flower exploding or fragmenting and floating away in the wind. And I think I got pretty close to that illusion. You'll see that I made one crucial mistake that apparently is the bane of my existence. The temperature in my shop, which is out in my shed, is a hard thing to overcome in the summer when you're using resin. I don't care what kind of resin you use. If it's too hot, it'll set too fast, and the exothermic reaction causes a lot of cracking and bubbling. Thankfully, I didn't get too much bubbling on this, but it certainly cracked. And I suppose my slightly cop-out answer is, hey, it looks like an antique stained glass appearance. I thought I'd have this temperature thing beat, but I believe that I do. I just gotta perfect it. There's a little release valve on my pressure pop, and I thought I've got my air compressor inside my house, bringing in really cold air conditioned air, and I thought if I just pump that into my pressure pot, I should be good. as long as there's some circulation. And I had this little release valve going, but I didn't have it circulating enough air. So unfortunately, I have the same result as my last one, the ocean wave bowl. So, but I got to it. It's one of those things where you learn your lesson about 2 hours too late. I realized how hot it was getting as I was running around doing other stuff. Cranked up the release valve, and it cooled off immediately, but it was too late. So I do believe this is the last major lesson I need to learn to perfect my clear resin technique. And I am looking forward to my next project because there can't possibly be anything else that can go wrong, right? Yeah, I'm sure I'll prove that statement wrong. I actually didn't hate how this turned out, but I was going for just clear resin look, and that day is coming. The heat is certainly an obstacle that's been challenging to overcome. I usually don't fill in cracks in my bowls. I like having cracks that give it a bit of character, but in this case I was afraid it was really going to draw too much attention. So I decided to fill it in the end, and I'm glad I did. It takes away, makes it less of a focal point anyway. Quick shout out to my brother Dave. We've partnered with his company that started Trumi. It's a safe smartphone for kids. Helps keep kids from too much exposure online, and yet has a lot of the functionality of a basic Android phone. They have committed to donating $30 for every person that subscribes. So there's a code in the description of the video. You can get $50 off a subscription, as well as earn Operation Underground Railroad $30. So that's an awesome thing that's going on. I will say this: the silicone dried these flowers so well. They are incredibly fragile. I went through a ton of super glue reinforcing these petals and the flowers because you breathe on this thing and it just shatters. So it's hard to manipulate. You ever played the game Operation? Um, it was pretty much along those lines. One little screw up and you snap these things. Um, I actually broke the heads off, the flower part off the stem on purpose so I could reposition it um, in the same plane as the stem, because I was going to lose a lot of it. You only get the thickness of the wall of the vase to work with, and so you kind of have to manipulate things and make sure they fit in there. You'll notice I left a bit of a ridge in the middle of my groove there so that I could prop these flowers up high, so as I'm turning they'd be prominent. Yeah, that was kind of a pain in the rear end to get everything in the right place. Since they were so fragile, I had to be super, super careful. One other casualty in this process, because I didn't control the heat very well when the resin was setting, is that it cooked the flowers and they turned brown. Towards the top, they didn't lose as much color, but the flowers themselves browned a lot. So definitely one of these I'm going to have to revisit to really capture what is possible. And it's certainly possible to capture a really good color. It's just got to keep the temperature down. This plastic sheeting has been the perfect stuff. Doesn't absorb resin, you don't lose much within it, and you can kind of cut it up and create a form however you need. It's taken me a while to figure out how to do this, but This gets you a skin tight mold so you don't lose a lot of resin, and it's disposable, so when you turn it, it just peels right off as you turn. It's soft plastic, so it's not a problem on your tools. And this stuff is rough. It's called utility paneling. It's just kind of a generic construction plastic paneling, but it's a rough edge to it, so the super glue will take really easily. And it's been great, super cheap. I forget how much, it's like 10, 20 bucks for a huge sheet of it, and I've got a lot of projects out of it. So I had a subscriber ask me to be a little more detailed about this process. So once you've protected your windows in your bowl with the plastic sheeting, I like to glue all over the place so it doesn't move anywhere. And the idea with that is to protect it from the sand from caving in the windows and collapsing into your project and into your subject, in this case the flowers. So once I got the sheeting glued on there really nicely, I triple bag it, and just plain old garbage bags. You can't afford a leak, right? One leak and you're done with a ton of resin. So I get that situated carefully in my vacuum chamber liner. Just carefully pour sand around it. I've stuck with sand. I've had a lot of people recommend rice, and I'm sure that would be fine, but I already have buckets of sand in the shop, and it's nice and heavy, so it settles around the project, and it pushes the plastic bag into the mold walls, the plastic mold walls I built there. And so it's a perfect shape custom mold every time. So I pack it in sand, and then once I've got it set up, I'm ready to pour my resin. I've really, my all-time favorite resin is Total Boat Deep Fathom. They're one of my main sponsors on this project. I was between shipments of Total Boat, so I used this magic resin, which is great as well, very good. And I'm not sure why, but there was some kind of cloudy flecks in the resin. I don't know if that's because it's been sitting in my hot garage or what, but I had this filter lying around, and I decided to filter, and I'm glad I did. I got a bunch of chunks out, and I didn't see any of that in the actual finished project. So anyway, I run this through the vacuum chamber for about 60 minutes. That encourages any trapped air bubbles to evacuate. It gets the resin to set deep into the grain of the wood, which helps keep it from separating down the road if the wood warps at all. And then once that's done, then I stick it in my huge pressure pot. Thankfully, this metal liner fits in both of them perfectly, so I just pick the whole thing up and plop it in the other. But I'll stick it in the pressure pot, let it sit for as long as it needs to cure, which is usually 2 or 3 days, and then pop it out, and you're good to go. That's it. Simple as that. I do think the vacuum chamber and the pressure pot are necessary. I've done projects with just one or the other, and the problem if you only use the vacuum chamber is it leaves behind micro bubbles that you can see, especially if you're doing clear resin like I am and shining light through it. It reveals all defects. So if you want perfectly clear resin, you got to do that, the vacuum chamber. But then you got to put it in the pressure pot to squeeze those micro bubbles small enough that you can't see them. So the other thing the vacuum chamber has helped solve is I almost always get some trapped pocket of air deep in the wood that slowly releases in a streaming trail of bubbles. And the vacuum chamber has solved that problem. So the two of them accomplish different things, and I think together you get the perfect fix. When you consider that these projects are, 18 inches tall before I've turned it down, you can't blowtorch it, you can't get to it, so it's I've tried everything in the past. I had a vibrating table, it didn't really do anything. I of course use really long setting deep pouring resin. Again, Total Boat Deep Fathom is my favorite. And even the time of setting up isn't enough to get rid of those micro bubbles on its own. It looks pretty clear, like it honestly does, but you can see the bubbles if you look real close. So I'm always going for perfection, and I'm getting real close. If only I had a climate-controlled shop. Once again, the heat in my garage. It's not that hot, like 85 at most. It's just too much. The resin, it says very clearly, all these types of resins, room temperature 70, 75 Fahrenheit is what you got to stick to, and they mean it. It's a chemical reaction. The conditions have to be just right. So, I swear on my father's grave, this will be the last project that gets the best of me. Like I said before in other projects, I actually don't mind the cracks too much. Turned out they give it kind of a cool feel, but so help me, I will solve this problem. Maybe I should just stick with it. Maybe it's my signature look now. I don't know, but that is kind of the last thing that's been really irking me. For September through May here in Utah in the United States, it's nice, cool weather, and temperature's not a problem. Pouring resin in the cold, I've never had a problem with. It'll set eventually. It may take a lot longer, but you heat it up, it's not a good thing. That's where things get out of hand. So, luckily, of the two windows, one of them barely cracked at all, and the other one cracked quite a bit. So, whoever buys this one, well, you can decide which you like, crack or no cracks. I've been trying something new. Of course, I always sell my projects to raise money for Operation Underground Railroad. These are the fine folks that go around the world rescuing kids from sex trafficking situations. They've been quite successful. They raised they saved about 4,000 kids plus, and they help in a lot of ways in the United States and around the world with different aspects of that, or of those rescues. Anyway, I've been trying something new where I've been auctioning these off instead of just selling them at a fixed price. So from the release date of the video, you've got about 10 days to place a bid, and there'll be a link, of course, in the description of the video that'll take you to Art for O.U.R, and from there, there's a link that goes to Galabid, GALAbid.com, and you can run with that. 100% of what I raise goes to Operation Underground Railroad, so bid away. I'd love to crack that $1,000 mark. We got close on this last one, the Ocean Bowl. Man, we were real close, which is just amazing. So that's what's happening there. I don't take commission requests anymore. It means a lot to me when people ask about that, but I have found that it kind of robs me of the fun of the creativity, the innovation. I always love to do what I'm excited about next, and I've already got a full-time job, and I like to be completely free with what I'm creating from an artistic standpoint. So sorry about that if you got your hopes up. You never know what I'm going to make next. I guess that's the problem. On my last video, I sung the praises of this steady rest that I purchased. Oh my gosh, this thing's amazing. As one astute watcher pointed out, I make some really tall vases, and usually because they're all soaked in resin, it's pretty strong and the tenon holds on, but invariably you get some wobble, and that's cost me a lot of time and makes the piece off center sometimes, which drives me nuts. So this has been amazing. Fantastic steady rest. Combined with the simple hollowing system, this mechanical arm that helps hold on to my carbide bit between the two of them, this is a much, much easier task to hollow out these deeper bowls. That blue stabilization tool is by Carter Products. It's called a Carter Products Multi-Rest, in case you're interested. This current project is probably, I need to measure the final project, but it's close to 12, 13 inches wide. So you could see, you could go much wider. This thing takes on mammoth projects, so great investment. Kind of on the expensive side, but I have yet to regret it. And the hours it has saved me, totally worth it in my opinion. And I don't see the thing wearing down ever. The wheels, I'm not sure what they're made out of. Probably kind of the same material as a skateboard wheel, but it doesn't scuff or mark. You don't have to clean up after it at all. It's 2 seconds of sanding and you're back to where you started. So great product. The simple hollowing system comes with an attachment if you want to buy it with a laser to show you how thick the wall is you're working on. But I go by the appearance of what I'm turning. I like to shine a light through the far side of where I'm working so that I get down to the just taking off just what I barely need to. I don't want to lose more than I have to of my subject, of my flowers or whatever. So I'm watching that and I'm checking again and again to see that I remove the wood just barely to the point where I've got my window exposed and all the excess wood removed. But that's an option you could do as well. For sanding, I do regular, because I use my orbital palm sander a fair amount, I just stock up on that and it fits in my hand nicely, but it's 40 grit, usually up to about 600 grit. And then I like to do the wet sanding from about 600 up to 2000. And for clear resin to get a perfect shine, that tends to be pretty good. Anyway, thanks for watching. Every time you guys subscribe or watch or buy one of my projects, you're helping me raise money for Operation Underground Railroad, and I appreciate that support. It's been amazing and fantastic. So have yourself a wonderful day, and see you in the next project.